My name is Dr. Stella Vnook, and I'm one of the co-founders of Kaeda. It's a private biopharmaceutical company dedicated to transforming ovarian cancer treatment. That's our lead program called KAD 101. It's a novel biologic designed to block prolactin receptor. Women's health is a very important topic right now, and I'm so thrilled to be here to talk about this because I think that beyond ovarian cancer, Kaeda is going to look to make a difference in endometrial cancer, cervical cancer, triple negative breast cancer, and so
That's great.
of solving very important gaps in women oncology.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what's sort of the origin story? How does this get started? What's the research look like? Like, what sort of starts the this progress?
Well, to be honest with you, the company started and had three patients already dosed in a clinical trial. So this is an unusual story for me because a lot of the companies that I build from ground up.
Hmm.
My co-founders came to me and said, look, we have this amazing asset. The patients that were dosed did incredible. We had tumor reductions in all three patients. Granted, it's just three patients.
Mm-hmm.
And then the company had challenges around growing E. coli, this is a biologic. So we had to pause and reconfigure the team and figure out how do we have a new cell bank, new manufacturing processes. It happens quite often, but we changed our CDMOs and we changed the team. We actually solved for the challenges that the previous team occurred. And now we're doing bridging studies to appeal to FDA to allow us to start the phase one again.
So, you do have to go kind of back to phase one and start over again? Is that what you're saying?
Even though we have an open IND and we were granted an orphan designation, we do have to go back in front of FDA because time has passed and criteria is changing all the time. So we want to make sure that whatever we have, FDA is comfortable with.
Yeah. So, one of the things I've heard you or I saw when I was doing some research for this was the phrase ovarian cancer gap. Can you explain like what that means for maybe laymen out there? What does that mean in your mind?
Well, the fact is, ovarian cancer, like other cancers, sometimes is diagnosed, well, actually more often than not, at a later stage. Means that the diagnostic technology is not quite there. Women get diagnosed at a stage 3B. That means that it probably is already metastasized to another area. Usually it's a
Mm,
lymph node and then somewhere else. And what happens after the surgeries, they get placed on a protocol which consists of generic products. And the innovation in the space has just recently picked up, but it's very segmented based on selective biomarkers. Up until recently, it's been very challenging for women that have, let's say, completed the first cycle of a treatment. And because the therapy has contains drugs that's called platinum therapy, they become platinum resistant. In layman's
mm,
terms, it's like somebody's allergic to amoxicillin,
mm,
right? So they can no
mm,
longer take it. So
mm,
that means when women come back, and there is usually recurrence occurs within 12 to 18 months, they have limited options. So that's the gap. The gap is late diagnosis leading to poor treatment outcomes and then limited options after the recurrence.
So in that progress, just to kind of stay on this thread here a little bit, where do you fit into this equation here? Are you guys earlier in the diagnostics? Is it more of the treatment? Where then do you guys come in with this to close this gap with your world?
I think it's a brilliant question. I love to talk about this because our principle is based on a prolactin antagonism. So prolactin is a hormone primarily associated with lactation and
Okay.
has been implicated in develop or progression of various cancers, including ovarian cancer. So the prolactin receptor is overexpressed in approximately 80% of ovarian cancer patients. And its activation promotes tumor growth and survival. Think of it as adding oil to a fire, right? So it makes the tumor grow faster and it enables it to be stronger. So KAD 101 is a novel therapeutic that designed to target what we call PRLR in cancer cells, right? That's prolactin receptor. And because it works by blocking this receptor, so therefore it's disrupting the signal pathways that drives the cell proliferation, or proliferation means growth. So if you think about our name, Kaeda, which is actually a dragon that eats its own tail, that's our
Mhm.
mechanism of action. It makes tumor eat itself, which is the process called autophagy, leading to self-destruction of cancer cells.
Mm.
So that is why we're so excited. It's a completely novel mechanism of action, and it could work synergistically with other agents. But we're specifically targeting that prolactin receptor with KAD.
And would a patient in this scenario have to go through a chemo or still do other therapies or anything like that? Or do you see what you're doing as, I guess, for lack of a better term, the end all be all? Or if you do our treatment, you'll be fine? Or like, how would it fit sort of in the whole package of maybe treatment itself?
So I believe clinically that combination therapy is a true answer. I think will be a huge part of the solution by creating the cancer autophagy. It will be a great combination drug. I think eventually down the line, and we're not studying it right now, we
Sure.
could
Yeah.
be used as monotherapy, or we could be used as an agent that perhaps women are placed on to continue to assure that if there are cancer cells formed, the autophagy process is going to take presence. But at this point, we're going to be studying a combination therapy.
Hmm.
And we're going to study in phase one dose escalation study. So, what is the optimal dose? It's going to be a sub-Q injection daily for 29 days. But in those 3 patients that were already given the product, the amazing things is the side effect profile was so low. It's so tolerable. And it's so important because we do want to have quality of life for women that are undergoing this, especially if we're talking about combination treatments.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess for patients that might get ovarian cancer, how much are outside influences like stress or lifestyle impacting this to maybe where your treatment doesn't do what it can do because of maybe other factors? Is there anything like that happening here at all?
Well, stress is going to get us all. I mean, I think stress is an important element. I can't speak to it clinically, but we all know that when the levels of stress are high, we're producing serotonin, which is a hormone, right? We can
Mm.
also have increased blood pressure. So there are biological factors that influence us when the stress level is high. And obviously the stress level is going to be high. These women have the diagnosis that, maybe 20 years ago was close to a death sentence. Now we have newer treatments. So obviously there's an anxiety, and some of the earlier regimens that they were put on are not an easy treatment to tolerate. So I believe that there will be stress level. But again, those 3 women that underwent that initial phase one tolerated it so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I bring it up because my wife we are in the weeds over here a lot on hormone therapies, and she's got a very special doctor, and she's, Hashimoto's, and she's gone down that, and it's just how much of it was just stress induced that eventually turned into this and then turned into that and kind of set her on this path. So I was trying to correlate a little bit around, just on treatments and what you do and what you guys look for. And it sounds like it's not quite a correlation, but I guess I'm just in my mind trying to think about some of the conversations we're having here in my house, and these things that kind of, happen in women and what some of these other things look like. I know like Hashimoto's is not big in men right now. And, or right now it is, at least isn't. So just trying to think about some of those conversations we're having internal in my
It's
house
a
right
very important conversation to have, and it's interesting. We're talking about this, and we are looking at celebrating Mother's Day. So
now. Hmm.
when I joined this company, I said that my premise was to save somebody else's mother, because I had gone through this battle with my mom, and she's no longer with us. So Mother's Day is always kind of very special for me, because I think we all have to be aware that stress affects women differently. You mentioned Hashimoto, which is an endocrine hormone disease, right? And
Hmm.
requires hormone treatment, and it
Yep.
very much is susceptible to be dysregulated during high levels of stress. Everything from hormone management to meditation to ability to breathe, and all of these things that I think back when I went to school, we really frowned upon. I don't think it had a line in our medical textbook. Right now, we're
Yeah.
thinking about the importance of it, and I do believe it's very important.
Yeah. So one of the things I got two questions. I want to go back to maybe just your background and how you got into this and maybe some of the education and stuff going to school. But before we get into that, how much have you seen, and I'm going to bring it in my own personal life here. We've struggled with male doctors, actually, my wife has, and she has gone through many doctors because there was almost this like brush offness, right? Just like, how much do you see that playing into maybe ovarian cancers or some of these things that you guys are working on of just maybe male doctors not taking it as seriously or not seeing early symptoms or whatever it is? Is that something that you see, think about at all in this world?
I'm not gonna, I don't have a perspective that it's male doctors versus female doctors. I have a perspective that it's a matter of education.
Mm,
I believe that a lot of clinical trials are even for broader conditions like cardiovascular were performed predominantly on male population. So we knew a lot more how a male would perform on a product versus a female. We talk about that different subsets of populations as well. So when it comes to women conditions in general, in order to have innovation and study a condition, let's really go back to the beginning. It starts in a lab in university, then it gets spun out, and then it gets funded. Who are the early investors?
right.
It's the world dominate is still dominated very much by male investors.
Sure. Yep.
You invest in what you know, right?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of men are not as aware as you are, and they don't understand ovarian cancer. Perhaps it looks unimportant, or perhaps it looks like a small market, or maybe it does
Right.
not look as significant as diabetes. There's
Right.
a variety of reasons without kind of putting blame on a system. I think it
Sure.
is lack of education. That's why I've been so adamant about talking about it, why it's important. Because once we understand, there's definitely financial element to launching this product. This is definitely a huge gap and unmet need. But most
Sure.
importantly, the reason why it's behind, let's say, treatments for testicular cancer is because we have generally lack of education, whether on the medical side. I mean, what can a doctor do if a woman presents to him or her, let's say it's a stage 3 ovarian cancer. Let's look at the symptoms.
Hmm.
Water retention. Some specialists right away could tell that this is ascites, but most primary care doctors probably would not. They probably would attribute that to hormone, perimenopausal,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about perimenopause. My wife is in that, so I'm wondering how much would just be like, oh, that's just where you are right now, and the test wouldn't happen, or they're just that conversation wouldn't even happen, maybe.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that delays the need. You need an ultrasound, right?
Right.
So more education, I think, occurring now. Awareness creates progress, and that creates better treatment, earlier diagnosis, and investors who are motivated to support these ventures, because some have wives that maybe deal with this, some have mothers, others just believe this is a high unmet need area and it's a great financial return, which is fine. Whatever
Yeah.
brings investors.
So let's go back to your background. How, like, what did you study? How did you get into this? Kind of what's some of your background?
Mm. So I studied a lot of science, mathematics. I actually did my early research at Temple School of Medicine, ER. And then I went to pharmacy school and I studied a lot of pharmaceutics and went back to oncology as my internship. So I've always wanted to solve for a missing gap. I grew up in the area very close to Chernobyl explosion. And
Oh, wow.
I realized that we need to do better in order to treat conditions that nobody could anticipate. So you're talking about endocrine, Hashimoto, cell mutation. So early on, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into areas that are not dominant because not a lot of people have the same backgrounds and same ethnicities, the same issues, but wanted to be part of the solution for the gap. Followed the path through becoming part of Merck, which is a large pharmaceutical company, and I spent 14 years there, almost 15 if you count the fact that I actually started there as an intern. And that's the best internship that landed me a job. And I really think that that launched my understanding of how pharmaceutical works because I started out from manufacturing to research, marketing, payers. So I went through the entire career of large pharma, and then my mom was diagnosed. And then when we went to a doctor, they were very late in diagnosing it for reasons we just discussed. So I sort of lived that with her.
Hmm.
And when she was put on a therapy, that was the therapy. I remember like it was yesterday that during my internship at Tampa Fox Chase Cancer Center that we put together with doctors. I'm like, I just spent 20 years launching new drugs. How come my mom was put on a therapy that is, old generics, toxic?
Yeah.
She really had a hard time with this. She became platinum resistant,
Mm.
so that made me want to do something different. So I came off the large pharma C-suite train into a startup world, which was very interesting experience. I gotta say, had my challenges and we'll call them learning opportunities because
That's one way to describe being a startup.
I can't believe I'm still here. There were a couple points when I really
Yeah.
thought that this was the end of my road. But I think that ultimately, every time I talk to the patient who reaches out to me on LinkedIn asking when is that clinical trial going to start, it reinvigorates my mission and my purpose and why I'm
Yeah.
still here.
That's great. That's great. Let's talk about what kind of team do you have around you, and what do you look for basically in team members at this stage of what you're building?
It's a challenging question because you're a startup company, you have a small amount of money, 80% of it goes into R&D. So what do you pay these people? I mean, I can offer them pizza slices, right? But a lot of times we use fractional teams that puts a lot of burden on like myself, for example, to make sure that all the teams have objectives very clean, say short milestones, but achievable that drives the company forward. So number one, CMC manufacturing expert is a must. That's part of my team. I like to have a chief medical officer with experience. So our chief medical officer, Dr. George Peoples, he is a surgical oncologist and he knows the space really well. Some things I do different. I believe in project management. So I have a director of operation. She's been with me in multiple companies and because it takes a village and it's hard to orchestrate. I sometimes think she has the hardest job. So managing the every single project, then it's important to build this company with the foresight of the commercial plan. I think a lot of startups ignore that. But if you
Mm,
just build it in a vacuum, it's an academic exercise. So
right.
you have a chief commercial officer with a lot of pharma experience who knows ovarian space probably better than most, and I have the chief scientific officer. All these people are fractional, so we're 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 having very detailed project plans set forth every month, and then we achieve it, and we move to the next milestone. The
That's
milestones
great.
for us, I forgot my critical team of cleanups and regulatory.
Mm,
Can't do anything in our business without cleanups and regulatory. You'll have
yeah.
site for clinical trials, and you'll never see it FDA. You can see how it gets complicated really
Yeah.
quickly.
Hmm.
So then our goal specifically is to get the cell bank in order, make sure that CMC in manufacturing is steady, go to FDA, get the approval to start that phase one again. That's our goal. We have so many patients that are asking us, when will you begin that clinical trial? I think that there's a lot of art to how you shovel the team and how you expand the team as you grow, right?
Yeah.
Then you will need a full-time person here. And then who is that full-time person?
Hmm.
And how do you offset everybody's skill sets?
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any partnerships that you're working with right now that's kind of helping with either manufacturing or anything along those lines?
Yes, we're working on partnerships with CDMOs. I'm not ready to disclose that yet because it's
Mm,
not inked. But obviously, CDMO is a critical partnership clinical site. We're working to finalize that partnership. Honestly, I was just talking to my team. What I would love to do, and that may be a little bit of a different approach, is to start conversations with pharma earlier.
mm,
Usually, we start conversations with pharma at the end of phase one, phase two, and that's how they prefer it. But the spaces has its challenges and the opportunity is phenomenal. So I think I want to do it differently this time and maybe start talking to companies that are committed to making a difference in ovarian cancer now and see how we can go faster together.
that's cool. That's great. What does sort of protecting all of this look like in this space? Maybe for investors who don't invest typically in this, what does it look like to protect, build your moat, your IP? What does that look like?
So we have an IP. It covers us through the, I don't know, 49. And we could have new IP that for the evolution of the next compound, and we constantly evolve. We're going to go from sub-Q to another drug delivery that's going to have its own IP. We're also going to look for biomarkers to make the diagnosis for this treatment, that this is the right treatment, easier. That's going to have a new IP. I think all the investors should be asking the question, how are you protecting your intellectual property?
Yeah. I for I always I do a lot of these episodes where I know investors have not invested in all these different verticals, and I always think pharmaceuticals or medical can sometimes get really down in the weeds of people just not knowing what they might even be getting into. They might have a story that's really impactful for themselves, and they just and maybe they're obviously accredited and they want to maybe get into this space. But what are we looking at just in general, like ballpark on timelines, FDA, getting into hospitals, doctors? Like, what are we looking at here? Is this the next 40 years, 20 years, 10 years? And I'm just thinking about it just for people that just don't know. Like, I just, I don't know.
Well, it's a complicated question because there's a huge difference whether we're building a biotech company on a therapeutic or is it a device. So let's separate those two because devices have their own. Then within therapeutic is a new chemical entity or we have a biologic. So we have an orphan designation. We're going to try to appeal for accelerated pathway. So let's see if I can break it down. If I can get to phase one, let's say in the beginning of 2027, that phase one is going to take about a year and plus, depending on how quickly we can get the patients enrolled. For this type of condition, it should not be difficult. So we need anywhere from 26 to 40 patients for phase one. And then we're going to go into phase 2B. Again, we're going to be asking for accelerated pathway. So for a company like ours, we could be commercializing the asset in about 6 years. Some assets take 10 years. Some areas, if you're interested in biotech in general, your devices are faster. But you're building one of the most exciting things that you can possibly contribute. Besides the fact that opportunity is massive, there's obviously risk. But you're enabling this great science to literally break through. The innovation is real. Yes, there's right questions you need to ask. You mentioned IP. You have to ask, well, how are you creating value? How are you using the capital? But you will be asking those questions whether you are investing in biotech or in fintech, right? What's
Sure.
the use of funds? Here, the trick is the evolving FDA regulatory path. And one needs to be aware of that. But think about the contribution that you can say that I was part of solution for treatment for ovarian cancer or any cancer that people believe that they're passionate about. Your money enabled a treatment that has 10 years survival versus 12 to 16 months.
Yeah. Right.
You can't buy that with any other investors. Whether people are passionate about real estate or anything else. With biotech, it's almost personal. It's
Right.
Legacy creating, it's enabling. I think that's what we all as humankind want to do. We want to evolve and have a better health for generations to come. So then you should make a difference in that.
How do you think about competition in a space like this? Is it, hey, it would be great if we're all coming together and having a cure or having a solution? Is it trying to own certain parts of it? But how does just competition, how do you think about it in your space right now?
Well, remember the earlier statement I made that I believe that the right way to target oncology treatments is combination therapy.
Hmm.
So I do believe that the more of us are advancing this forward, the better. And if you think about, even look at GLP-1s, everybody seems to now understand pharma from that perspective. Look at how many of them on the market, and some patients respond better to some versus others, and you continue to evolve the drug delivery, and then you still add other diabetes drugs, so there is a combination, it's not a standalone. Think of how much complications there can be in a condition like ovarian cancer. So I say the more the merrier. Let's figure out the right combinations. Let's figure out how to work together. Let's figure out ideally for which patient what is the right combination. So I'm talking about more of that precision medicine. Let's really understand from the beginning if this is the right drug or protocol or combination for that patient, until seeing, oh, well, we tried this for 2 months, didn't work, but
Hmm.
exhausted the patient's immune system. So now we can't even try anything else. That I would like to move away from.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask one question, and it may be a little bit on the old, may push a little buttons here, but do you think that the political landscape is impacting you positively or negatively on just the world you're playing in right now? There seems to be, from my vantage point, just a disregard for women's health, a disregard in general, top to bottom. How much does that play into FDA, play into just your research, your work, maybe just the overarching tone of your world right now, impacting it at all? Yes, no? Like what how does it feel from your vantage point?
I think it's a massive yes, especially from the lens of a startup founder and
Hmm.
CEO, right? And I have multiple companies, and all of them are feeling this because look at the IPO slowdown, right? So we're talking about investor vote. We went from over 100 biotechs in 2021 to, I don't know how many, did we have 11, I think, in 2025. So in Q1 of 26, that showed a little bit of momentum, but still, it's barely at 1.7 billion. We're talking about 15 billion in 21.
Right, right.
That talks about investors are willing to fund biotech, but what are they funding? Are they funding probably more of AI driven, maybe? What are
Yeah.
they looking for, right? They're looking for more mature pipelines. So I'm going to pause here because that's important. More mature pipelines. Well, how do you get to be more mature when you have a 40% decrease in NIH funding and many companies have been started without any grants?
Yep.
And then I've been talking quite a bit past 2, maybe 3 weeks about this whole Trump's executive order and the impact on most favored nations is going to have, and what is the difference between HR 7837. And I think a lot of this more astute investors understand, what it would cover and the impact, and the fact that we are investing in this area and in hopes to get returns 10, 12 years from now, right? And our returns are based on financial models that are already impacted by payer market scenarios, approval. Is it going to be on formulary? Is it not? Is it going to be covered? Now we have to also be concerned, well, what is the pricing strategy? We have to go back and change all that, because if we're looking at launching the product globally, you have to be concerned about what is the price that you can launch at, because
Mm,
now you'll be legally required to offer that second lowest international net price according to that most favored nation.
right.
And that, I think the uncertainty of it is enough to drive investors away from, well, this is high risk. I understand it's a noble cause, but it's a high risk. We don't really know the returns 12 years from now. Maybe I'll stick to fintech. So that really, if we're comfortable as United States of America dominating pharmaceutical landscape and innovation, then what are we really doing to our innovation? Because that early stage where it's more fragile, we sort of hit it from all directions. We
Yeah.
took down the NIH funding. We're going to lower the prices, and we're going to mandate where you're going to manufacture it too.
Mm.
It's just hasn't been the easiest 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm aware. I work in a number of pharmaceutical companies myself over here. I'm helping with fundraising, and it has been tough. So we could probably talk for another 30 minutes, another hour on this stuff. But we should definitely do a follow-up. Where should people dive in to learn more if they want to see some stuff, they want to reach out or connect? Where should we send people?
Well, you can send people to a website. There's info or Kaeda Biopharma. You can send people to me personally if they have a question. We talked about my science and mathematics degrees. We didn't talk about the fact that I actually studied public health economics and got a doctorate in it because I see that as a the element of education that everybody's going to require, from the CEOs to investors. So I think if people have interest in learning more about, in general, biotech, I'm happy to answer any questions. So people want to learn about ovarian cancer and Kaeda, please reach out to us at info@Kaeda Biopharma.
That's great. Well, doctor, I appreciate it. This was a great conversation. We will definitely do a follow-up here in a few months here just to see any progresses. For all my listeners out there, you guys have done this before here. Go to the show notes, click on stuff, reach out, connect if you have any questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for everything.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks.